And he goes, but it's going to be a lot faster and a lot cheaper if I can just walk you in right now. Yeah, we were gaming the system. We
Yeah.
were playing with house money and we were just having fun. I just kind of walked in and we just walked in and we looked like we belonged there. And there were a couple of nice, comfortable chairs and tables and a big television screen.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode here on F1 America.
Live from the paddock. Definitely excited to talk about this episode. We've been trying to string it along here for 2 months, about 2 months, a month and a half, maybe. We got two special guests today. We're really excited to introduce them, and they're going to talk about their experience at the Las Vegas Grand Prix. Good buddies of Derek here, and hope you guys enjoy the show. Let us know what you think.
Tell us about your adventure, right? You guys linked up, you are into Formula One, and you got a chance to go to Vegas last minute. Just run us through that scenario.
Yeah, that's so Matt and I had been watching Formula One, especially during the pandemic. We started hanging out and watching Formula One more because we had time. And we kind of talked about the idea of going to a race, just kind of, floated that idea kind of hypothetically, not super seriously. And, fast forward to the week before the Las Vegas Grand Prix. And I was really just tired of the rain and wanted to go someplace warm. And so I was looking for cheap flights places. And I found a cheap flight to Las Vegas for that weekend. And I had actually no idea, it wasn't on my radar. I had heard about the Formula One in Las Vegas, but it wasn't on my radar that it was that weekend. And then I realized that that's what it was. And this was week a week before the race. And I ran into Matt that day and I said, I have this crazy idea. What if we go down to Las Vegas next weekend and go to this race? Would you be able, is that crazy? That's a stupid idea, right? and Matt's like, I'll go.
That's all. How much was the
And I
flight? Just
was like,
curious.
well, so when we just the next day when we actually decided to go, I got the dirt cheapest flight and hotel room that I could find on Expedia, and it was for the whole thing. It was $750 for both of us.
Nice.
That's not bad at
So
all.
yeah, no, so I was like, and I knew that the prices were gonna like at that price, it was like whatever, we can swing that. And when I told my wife about doing this, I approached it the same way. I'm like, this is a stupid idea, right? This is irresponsible. I shouldn't do this. And she's like, no, you totally should do this. So that was all the permission I needed. And so I texted Matt and I'm like, all right, let's go. And Matt was game, right? He's just like, whatever, let's go. This is nothing. Let's just go see what happens. And at the time, I started quickly looking at what was going on in Las Vegas and watching videos and jumping on Facebook forums and reading about what was going on and going on, Ticketmaster and StubHub and SeatGeek and trying to see what tickets to races cost. But I was also looking for watch parties all across the city in Las Vegas, because even if we weren't able to get tickets to the race, I've been to Las Vegas before for Super Bowl and so on. And so there are always great watch parties, right? And there's often watch parties that are not sold out and you can get in at the last minute, some seats somewhere. So I was looking everywhere, and that's when I started to realize how expensive the whole thing was, and that tickets were considered cheap because they had come down from $2,000 the previous year, and now they were like $1,000 or $1,200. So
I mean, this is the
and
most hyped, most expensive race like in F1
yeah,
history.
yeah, and Matt started looking at that stuff too, and we're both like, and I was like, let's just go. What if we just go find a watch party? There's like these watch parties that are $100 and this watch party's $50, and and that's when Matt was like, if we're gonna go, we should really try to be on the track, right? We should really try to get into this race somehow.
All
So
right, so walk us through,
so
like,
I'm like,
you guys are down there now. Where are you staying at?
yeah. So the dumpiest hotel on the strip, I think, is at the very end of the strip. But I knew that the strip was like closed off or under for the track, and so I and I knew the monorail was going to get us in. So what I did was at the southern end of the strip is the MGM Grand, where the monorail terminates, and across the street from that was the cheapest hotel on the strip, which was the Oyo, which is a Super 8 motel that was a casino.
So a little bit about your guys' background too, and Rishi, you told me, on our call earlier, discussing, if this would be a fun video or not. You really expressed to me how this isn't your typical vacation that you're, like both of your guys' wives are used to, a little bit more lavish lifestyles. You guys are in hospitality. You're used to staying in really nice places. So just going on kind of like the bootstrap budget and getting down there just for the thrill of the weekend of it and to see
totally
what adventure
that was it. It was like we're gonna shoestring this thing together. And I'd never been on a plane with Matt to go anywhere before, so this is our first time traveling together.
Okay. Because you guys are neighbors, right?
Yeah. And I was like, Matt, are you up for this? Because this is going to be dirt cheap. And I'm like texting him. We're texting back and forth every day. Like, what are we going to do? I'm like, this is not going to be comfortable, right?
So did you understand? Excalibur? Is that what we're going to understand?
No, the Oyo.
The Oyo. So the Oyo used to be the Hooters.
Oh, the Hooters. I couldn't remember the name of it. I forgot they changed that. Okay, because I was thinking, well, across the street from MGM is Excalibur, and that's pretty rough. I've been there before.
Yeah,
first time in Vegas.
This is probably rougher than that, but we survived. No, honestly, I mean, I just literally had no time to think about it, and when Rishi rang, I just said, I'll just get on this train because I knew it would be a fun train, and even if it didn't work out, we'd still have a blast in Vegas. It was just one night, but no, this is absolutely not the kind of vacation that my wife would enjoy. But a couple of guys just traveling around doing dumb stuff. It was perfectly fun. Yeah,
rad.
Yeah, we each had a bag and our shoes, and that was it. Like a backpack and some shoes, and we're just so we get there. We fly down on Saturday morning. And we've been watching the whole week. We've been watching like how ticket prices were dropping and dropping and dropping, and we're like, okay, it's down to $700. What's our floor? And we both decided our floor was $500. If we could get a ticket for $500 each, that would be, even though that's almost what we spent to fly down there, that would be like worth making the trip, right? And being on the track, to be on the track, to be in the excitement and the noise and all that of being in the race. That was our floor. And it got down to 700, and I said, let's just wait a little bit longer because let's see what happens, right? And then the opening ceremony happened, and then the Thursday night practice session with the street, hole cover blowing up,
manhole cover,
but then things started to creep back up again and climb and climb and climb, and I'm like, oh, well, that was my chance, right? And so every day I'm watching the prices, and I'm texting Matt, and I'm like, well, I don't know, we might have missed the window on that. So we get there on Saturday morning, and by then the ticket prices had climbed back up to $1,000, and the hype started to build because qualifying started to get kind of interesting, and it wasn't the disaster that everybody thought it was. The rain wasn't coming. It wasn't going to be quite as cold, and so things were stabilizing a little bit, and it started to look more and more like it was going to be really packed. Well, the surprise was when we got there on Saturday, it was packed. It was so packed. And I had never been in Las Vegas before with this many people. And really? everybody on the plane, everybody in the airport, everybody, when we got on the strip in the afternoon, early afternoon, and we took the monorail in, the Oyo Hotel was full of Checo fans,
Not impressed.
It was like all of the Mexican fans are staying in this Oyo Hotel, and they were all wearing Checo gear. It was hilarious. But up and down the strip, everywhere you went, everybody was in their Aston Martin gear and their Red Bull gear and Ferrari gear and Mercedes gear. It was crazy to be at a sports event that was in America that was not football jerseys.
Everybody decked out head to toe.
Everybody decked out, and it was packed. Like, it was amazing to be in Las Vegas where it wasn't just a few people. Everybody there was into it, and it was palpable. It was exciting. So we walked the whole strip, and the whole time, both in the hotel and on the monorail and just walking the strip, we're kind of talking to people, and I was kind of counting on Matt, who's even more outgoing than I am, to like strike up a conversation with some Australian billionaire at a bar and get us seats to, some some paddock, but everybody we talked to was like, yeah, either they had tickets and they had bought them a year ago and they had paid a lot of money, or they didn't have tickets and they were doing the same thing we were doing, and they were going to go to the Circa watch party, or something like that, which was free, right, or whatever, or go find a hole in the fence.
I think Rishi. I'm actually from the same city as Dan Ricciardo, and I think Rishi thought that Australia being a small place and Perth being a small place, I might be able to.
Yeah, you must know him, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Can you get me into the club?
Yeah. It was kind of funny, actually. I mean, there was a connection there. I did work for Ricciardo family, which is their history there is mining, and so I did work for them many years ago. But this was obviously when Dan was a kid. So there is kind of an odd link there. But no, I wasn't able to.
So you can get him on the show.
Yeah.
Exactly.
He's our next guest.
Yeah.
Exactly. I know, right?
But so it was, so that wasn't panning out, but so we're walking down the strip, I don't know, at 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and we're sticking our head in, places that are along the strip that are close, that have like TVs and views of the track, and they're all sold out, and they're all getting ready to shut down. They're like, yeah, we're not seating anymore. We're shutting down. We're getting ready for the night. The big night is tonight, right? And these are places that were charging like $300, $400, $500, $600, $700, $800 for a seat at a dining table and a meal, and all of that. So
were some of those restaurants, did they have to have their windows blacked out and stuff, right? So that's the one thing leading up to this race that was kind of a big question that we had and was being publicized, was that there was like a $1,500 head count per person per capacity for each of those restaurants or casinos. Anybody that had a view of the racetrack, that they had to pay this huge cover charge. They were gonna put advertising over their windows.
It did seem like that.
Yeah. So you think that's why the surcharge for even just dinner and everything was so much higher than normal?
I do. Yeah. And there was, and a lot of stuff was blacked out. And then of course the sky bridges were all black, it had a bunch of like scaffolding around them, and people had already tried taking down that.
I saw.
And the restaurants that we sort of earmarked as we're walking around in the afternoon were the kind of places where you couldn't really see anything, but you're close enough to be able to hear it, right? So you're right in saying, yeah, absolutely, anything with a view, almost to the extent of, well, if you're sitting on the lower level of this restaurant, it's just kind of business as usual. But if you're on the upper level where you can see the track, then yeah, it's going to be $2,000 just to get in. And that was the case, Rishi. I remember that one place we went to and we asked about going upstairs, and it was sort of getting close to the race, like a couple of hours before, and remember, it was still like $1,800 just to get up, and it was nothing. You were just basically sitting up there, and you'd have a reasonable view of the track, but not really. And they were really standing firm. They weren't willing to negotiate or anything, and it was kind of ridiculous.
Wow.
So we did find.
Did that include like dinner at least, or is it just to get into the restaurant?
Yeah, no,
really make that. Yeah, it was kind of like a
Okay.
and I don't know whether it was an all you can eat and drink, but
Right.
even if it was $2,000 is.
It's a lot to drink.
It's a lot.
Yeah,
and it was a small venue, and it was by no means filling up. People weren't lining up to get up to this place. It was, I don't know.
You'd be better off to spend that money on a better ticket and have a seat, right?
Well, at that point, yeah, absolutely. And at that point, you could buy it. You could buy a ticket for less than that. So it was kind of strange.
Yeah.
So we ended up not finding a really nailing down any real firm plans. So we went and kind of freshened up, and we headed back out on the strip around 8 o'clock maybe, and I said, let's just go So the whole week I had been looking at tickets in one particular place specifically. I was looking at turns 2, 3, and 4 in the East Harmon zone, which was just past, turn 1 and before the first DRS zone, I think. So it was, and the tickets were, I was like, this is close enough to like the main paddocks. Maybe we'll see some action coming out of the pit, and this seems to be like, we're not in the paddocks, but we could see the paddocks, That would be a cool place to go. And I was finding tickets there for, earlier in the week for $750. Of course, the fees were ridiculous on top of that, these tickets. But I said, let's just go over there to where the grandstand entrances are. Let's just take the monorail over there and just see what we find. Maybe there'll be scalpers out there, who knows. And this time when we got on the monorail was jam-packed, every single car. And when we got off the monorail at the same stop everybody got off, it was just like hundreds and thousands of people were all just sort of like this giant crowd walking down this street and around this sort of back alley. This is like off the strip, right, to this sort of central area where the West Harmon zone, the East Harmon zone, and the pathway that went off to the Sphere all met. And it's kind of by the Westin. And I don't know, we were walking along there and we saw a couple of shady looking, scalpers, but, decided to pass on those guys.
No, you weren't like, take my money.
Yeah, it was like, we didn't want to lose our money, So
yeah, fair. Or you mugged.
So and then what we ended up finding there, were a couple of other people, like a guy from Canada who was doing the exact same thing as we were. We were just standing around looking to see who might be looking to sell an extra ticket, right? But again, we were not finding any luck. But we did find a free Heineken beer stand. So we drank some Heinekens. And then it was like, I don't know, 9 o'clock, and Matt said, let's go back over to where the grandstands were, which was right across the street. And we're like kind of looking around. And remember, Matt, they were like, there were so many people, but so many beautiful women, just dressed to the nines, right? And then and everybody in their gear, and people that looked like they were in the mafia, and it was crazy. It was really like all walks of life, all of the Las Vegas.
Yeah, it was an eclectic crowd for sure. Yeah.
So we're standing there. I don't know. It was 9:10, and we're looking around, and that's when I turn and I see this young kid come from the other side of the grandstands, and he's wearing this kind of gray brown hoodie, and he's not, he's not wearing race gear, and he's not particularly well dressed. Matt and I had put on some nice clothes, and we were looking, we were wearing Red Bull colors, and we were looking kind of blending in. And this kid's looking around, and he's talking to his buddy, and he's looking for somebody else and couldn't find him. And I don't remember, Matt, do you remember how the conversation started? I think I was like, hey, what do you got? What are you selling? And he goes, what do you guys need? And I said, we're trying to get a couple tickets to go in. And he looks at his watch and he goes, all right. I said, he just kind of shakes his head, and he's like, a couple tickets, it's going to be $600 each. And he goes, but it's going to be a lot faster and a lot cheaper if I can just walk you in right now. And I'm like, well, what does that mean? Walk us in? And he goes, I just walk you in, and you just walk with me, and you pay me on the other side. And I said, how much is that? He goes, $500. And I said, okay, what's the risk? He goes, no risk. You don't pay me till we get on the other side. I said, I'll give you $500 for both of us right now. He goes, oh, I got to make something. And Matt goes, and that's when Matt just steps in. He goes, 600 for both of us right now. and he's like, all right. He goes, all right. You guys need a second to think about it. He stepped away for a minute. He's talking to his friend, and he comes back 30 seconds later. He goes, are we going to do this or what?
How old would you say this kid is?
Oh, God.
18?
Yeah,
okay,
barely.
so young.
I mean, the stuff that he was saying at some point, I was like, maybe this is actually legitimate. Like, it just didn't make sense. It's like, I'm going to get you in, and then, well, how are you going to get in? We're just going to follow you. So how can you get in? And then, how do we get it? Like, I was just like, well, maybe this is real on some level, like maybe there's just this kind of this underground ticket sales system that we just don't know about. And anyway, but we I'm like, well, here we are. The race starts in 10 minutes, so let's just keep going on this train, and or end up in jail and have a great story to tell, but
so yeah, so he said, I said, okay, let's go. And we just immediately beeline maybe 20, 30 feet to his buddy, who is in this line of ticket gate checkers, who just kind of like fakes, he pulls out his phone and just kind of fake scans his phone, and we all three of us kind of get waved through. And we take about 5 steps, and some lady who's also a ticket checker comes over and goes, hey, wait, you guys can't go, you can't go in, he can't go in, he's already gone in, he went out, he can't go in. And Matt and I just stop, and we're just kind of looking at each other and looking at him, looking at each other, and like, is this it? Is this as far as we're going to get? Like, what happens? And the lady's not looking at us. She's looking at the kid, right? Because we look like maybe we belong there. And then his friend comes over and jumps in and goes, no, he's cool. He's already come through. You don't have to worry about it. She never asked us about our tickets. She didn't even associate us with him. And then the next thing you know, the three of us kind of keep walking, and we kind of separate into the crowd, and we walk maybe another 100 feet. We're all like just kind of looking at each other, and Matt's about 10 paces behind me. And then we kind of come back together, and we're in this sea of people all making their way to the East Harmon Grandstand. And he comes over to me, and he's like, okay, just Venmo me. And I Venmo him, and he goes, thanks. And he's like, I'm going to just text you a couple of tickets just so you have something, right? And he texts me like a couple of basically like fake tickets for a different zone, actually. So it wasn't even this zone. and that was it. Now, Matt and I live pretty healthy lives and don't drink energy drinks, but because we knew this was going to be a long night, we had both slammed a Red Bull about an hour earlier.
Oh.
So the combination of the Red Bull and the adrenaline of having just gone through this game, and maybe the Heinekens, just kind of all hit all at once. And now I can like feel my heart beating out of my chest, and Matt's going and behind me. He's just like, just stay calm, Richie.
Yeah, let's not draw any attention to ourselves. It's kind of weird. And in hindsight, when I look at that experience, when Rishi and I are standing there, and this kid's everyone's just sort of coming in saying, "What are you doing?" And I realize now that I don't think anyone was paying any attention to us. I think if we just kept walking, they were really focused. I don't think they realized that he was getting us in. I think they were just like, this kid's been in like 5 or 6 times already, and we're onto it. And they probably just assumed that we just walked in with our tickets prior to that, because they didn't even look at us. It was really, really weird. But guys, look, I do have to go, but I don't know if you're interested in my 2 cents on the race itself.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, and it's been a really crazy, unpredictable, busy day here, which is kind of sad as we lead up to Christmas. So I apologize for being late earlier. But look, here's what I'll say. I mean, my interest in Formula One goes back a long way. Formula One is I've been in Seattle for 17 years, but Formula One is quite popular in Australia. It always has been. And I'd never been to a race down there, but it was always kind of fairly broadly telecast on free-to-air TV, that sort of stuff, right? So just, all the Michael Schumacher days, I remember watching it all through the 90s and the 2000s. I've always kind of kept an eye on it. Now, I thought, so I was super excited to go down and experience this, and I thought it was fantastic. But I think I have like more of a European kind of affection for or interest, nostalgia for Formula One, right? Which I think a lot of Americans don't really necessarily have, right? It's quite a new sport. Now, I would say that East Harmon zone where we were, I honestly thought like being in there, and we had a great time, of course, and things worked out differently for us, and it was great. But if I had paid the ticket prices for that zone, I would have been insanely disappointed. I think that the way I described it to Rishi was, and literally we were in there, we had such a bad view, regardless of where we sat on that corner, because there was free seats, so we were kind of able to move around and sit in different sections. But that whatever area it was, Rishi in that East Harmon zone, what I said to him is, I feel like I saw each car once, like each car for a second, for a total of 1 second, 50 times, right? Because all you saw was just the cars just zipping around the corner. And I think that and of course you get the smell and you get the experience and you get the you get the sound and all that, but you didn't really see much. And pretty much everyone, if you looked around, everyone was just looking at the screens. So at that level, I thought that if you were American and you were fairly new to Formula One and you paid over $1,000 to sit in that area, given the vastly amazing experiences you can have in so many different genres for $1,000, I thought it was a total miss. And I wouldn't be surprised and almost hope that that's reflected in the demand next year. Now, for other people, that's where spending $1,000 is not a big deal. Maybe they wouldn't come back, but for people where $1,000 is a lot of money, it would surprise me to see them make that kind of investment again. To me, it fell flat. And honestly, by lap 25, looking around, people were just sort of, kind of their hands are in. There was a cold night. Their heads are in their hands, and they're really just looking at the screens. I'm like, this is not great. But anyway, so that was my 2 cents. Having said that, it was a great experience. But guys, I've got a meeting. I really have to go. So thank you.
No worries, Matt. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much.
We really appreciate it.
My pleasure, guys. Take care.
Bye.
That's kind of what that's what I'm scared of, because I thought
exactly what we've talked about multiple times is like, you can stay at home in the comfort and you can watch the entire race and they have it all, sectioned out for you to catch all the action all the time.
Well, and you see a wreck and it's on the other side of the track, you don't get to see the wreck. You have to look at the screen anyways. Or, I can have my favorite snacks. I don't have to buy a shitty hot dog for $40 or a large soda for $20, And the same thing with going any sporting event, that is too. Like, name it, whether it's a team sport, another motorsport, whatever, everything is heightened. But there is also a sense of like, oh, I'm here. Like, yeah. Great. Like,
yeah, I do think it would be fun to go just for the experience, and maybe not necessarily with the understanding of like, I might not see the best race, but maybe just being in the vibe and being around and everything is going to be part of that experience. Right.
Yeah,
like,
I think the only person it was
paddock passes and go down, like that would be more of the experience. Then we're probably not going to see much of the race because that exact reason.
So I had a friend who I met down there who had a paddock pass and went down and spent the previous day down there and met, the team principals and all this kind of stuff. And then he also had seats provided by one of the teams on turn 3. And he left halfway through the race because he didn't have a good view. And like, when we got in and we got in the East Harmon zone, at first we didn't go into the grandstands. And I spotted this little Wynn lounge off to the side of the grandstands, which was right on the track at track level. And I just kind of walked in, and we just walked in and we looked like we belonged there. And there were a couple of nice, comfortable chairs and tables and a big television screen. And so the cars were like zipping by us, which was cool. Like we could turn around and see it. But we were watching the race on the television, and that's of course what it's made for, right? And then when we came back home, we actually watched the race again on the television just to kind of see what we didn't see. And but the excitement of being there was that when we walked in, and when the race started, like Vegas can put on a spectacle. And so there's choppers whirring overhead and the lights are up and the music is blaring. There's like DJ music everywhere, and the cars are tearing by, and there's the sound, and it's all like, it's palpable and electric. And that's the cool thing, is that the sensory element of being in it is cool. But the only person it was really a great race for were the drivers, right? So
when you stepped into the Wynn lounge, were you able to like get anything while you're in there, or was it solely just sit down, have it like watch the race, or were there like waitresses and stuff like that, like, hey, I want a drink or whatever?
Food was free everywhere.
Okay,
cool. And so once you're in the lounge, there's like right there in every zone, Wolfgang Puck had everything catered. So they had huge spread at all these different stalls. Each one had a different thing, and you could just go get whatever you wanted, and they had more than enough, and you just
is that for anybody that has a ticket to get in?
Anybody.
Cool.
And they charged for drinks outside, but in the Wynn lounge the drinks were free.
There you go.
And or some of the drinks were free, the basic drinks, but then you could order like all the expensive whatever, like champagne and all that. And that's where we saw that one guy who he was in this roped off area, and they brought out this Magnum. And when I was looking at the tickets, what was included in the tickets, that was one of the things, for up to 6 guests along with that, like you got this trackside thing with a Magnum of champagne or whatever. And that came out, and this guy is by himself. Initially, he was with 2 girls, 2 very, very pretty girls who were just there posing and taking their pictures and all that kind of thing. And they opened the champagne, and I don't know, maybe 10 or 15 minutes after that champagne was opened, they were gone. So then he was by himself.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's the thing. Like,
and that was the one that was essentially what, $1 million?
It was $1 million for 6 people.
For 6 people, yeah. So about 200 grand, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So and that's what, to Matt's point, like if we had paid even $750 to have tickets, that would have felt. I mean, it still would have been a ton of fun, but it would have. I think why we had such a good time was because we felt like we were taking
you gamed it a bit.
Yeah, we were gaming the system.
Yeah.
We were playing with house money, and we were just having fun.
Yeah,
but,
for sure.
But
that's what I was going to say when you guys first walked in, though. It's like, okay, yeah, you're in, both you guys, for $600, which is basically what I paid to go to Texas next year. Actually, I paid the fees included. So, but like you guys came up for sure, and then you didn't get rolled, and then it's just like the whole element. It's just like you have this sick story that's just like you're kind of running from the cops, but trying to figure out a way to get into the club with the cool kids, and then you do get in the club with the cool kids. Then you're sitting next to the guy that buys the $1 million ticket, which is even more hilarious.
Yeah,
and then you see his girls leave him too, which is just like the whole scheme of things. It's just like
it's crazy.
Man, the good guys won today.
Yes.
And we went and we sat at turn 4, like. After halfway through the race, people were they were starting to leave early, and so we just turn 4 there were a bunch of empty seats. Turn 3 there were fewer empty seats. Turn 2 there were almost no empty seats, and that had a better view. But they were really uncomfortable. The seats in the Wynn Lounge were way more comfy.
For $1 million, they better.
I mean, like it's just bleacher seats, not like even for $1,000, like they're not that comfortable, right? So, But I think the spectacle of it was really entertaining. But I think it was really entertaining because we weren't paying out the nose for it. So
right, you weren't out anything really. If you got caught and you had to leave, you're like, okay, well, that was a fun experience. We got in for a little while.
What's completely different in where I come from racing motocross, and you go to supercross and stuff like that. And majority of the time, if you're on the second level or higher, even if it's the cheapest seat in the house, you could see the entire race, right? So you could see if somebody crashes on the far side of the track. You could see if somebody does something cool on this side of the track. You can see the whole thing. What's different.
And the Jumbotron just highlights what's happening.
Yes. Too. And then, there's a replay. Cool. I can see, I missed that crash, but I can see it. Even when I go to a supercross race, though, I come home that same night and I watch it as soon as I get home. But what blows me, you don't have guys doing 200 miles an hour. You have them hitting 60 maybe. So that's like the other thing. So like you're going to pay all this money to get there, and you're going to blink and the car's going to go by, and you're like, oh shit, I didn't even see it.
Yeah. So, and I think everybody agrees that this race was more about the spectacle than the race for the fans. And that's Matt's point too, right? This was a spectacle. This was a Las Vegas show more than it was a show. More than it was a race for fans of racing. And that's kind of half of why I went. I knew that there was a good chance we weren't going to get in to see the race. And so worst case scenario was we were going to watch the race on television, which was what we were going to do anyway.
True.
But at least we could see some lights and get some warm weather, and it'd be kind of fun to be just kind of in the buzz, right? We got a lot more than that, which was great. But I think for a lot of people who were there, I think there were a lot of people there who were fans of the race, and Las Vegas was or the F1 was putting on a show for a different reason. It was more about the glamour. Even the clothing ceremony where all the 3 racers get in a Rolls Royce and get driven over, but that's not even where the ceremony happens. And there was all this sort of like pomp around that, which I thought was just kind of a waste of time, but that was my 2 cents.
Well, we all like racing. right? Like that's why we have this channel, because we love the racing.
Yeah.
And I love that it's getting popular in America. But it kind of goes to show I don't know, like who are they catering this whole thing to?
Unfortunately, I think that Vegas is turning into Vegas is basically just the stepchild of the Miami race. It's a money flex for all the rich people. I mean, then I watched the Netflix thing that we talked about on I think the previous video or one of the previous videos, and the Netflix thing was just a people grab for like who can be there. Mark Wahlberg was there. Marshawn Lynch was there. I'm like, he doesn't even know what he's talking about or what he's doing. And he's like, I'm like, dude, you're like, this is stupid for like the person that cares about the racing, right? And I like both golf and racing. So like I was like double annoyed with the situation. I'm like, why is this guy here? Why are they doing it like this? This is stupid. Like for a production, this was not really well put together. And then obviously the ticket prices reflected the race. Like, cool, this guy's got probably a multi-millionaire, maybe a billionaire, but you saw him in the club by himself. Great, you made it in life.
I would argue that Las Vegas is going to eclipse Miami, and that it's going to be the biggest race. It's going to be the most hyped and biggest race of the American circuits, but maybe of all of the circuits. And that they, if their objective was to put on a great show, they probably succeeded at that.
Mm-hmm.
And that one of the reasons, not the only reason, but one of the reasons why this race is getting more, or this race is getting more popular, is because it's glamorous. And so you've got this, and in Las Vegas, you've got that cross section. You've got the racing and the action, but also the glamour. And that's what, they're trying to capture, the glamour money and the glamour idea. And that's kind of why people watch it.
Well, imagine the amount of money that it's bringing into for all the clubs, for everybody. We're going to go out to the club and maybe we'll see Max, or we'll see Lando, or we'll see, like just hoping.
Yeah. Well, and regardless, they broke records in how much revenue they pulled in for the city in that weekend. Yeah. So it was definitely successful, and it was successful for the dealers, and it was successful for the casinos, and it was successful as far as revenue for the city. It like doubled Super Bowl revenue. So, I don't think that it was a failure in terms of, it wasn't a commercial failure. It might have been still frustrating or disappointing for the people who paid to go there,
the little people.
So it'll be interesting to see how successful they are next year and what changes they make for the fans. But I think that in one sense, it was actually a huge success for them.
For them as a business, for sure.
For the business, yeah.
I can see that.
As a fan, Rishi, would you go back to that race?
No.
Yeah,
I wouldn't. Yeah.
If you were to. Is there another section that you think might be a better place?
The Sphere. Yeah, the Sphere. Okay. The Sphere had, from what I, heard and was told, the better viewpoint for the same money, right? There's the standing room only section, and there's stands around there, but you can actually see the cars coming out of whatever that turn 6 and going in all the way around the Sphere. Plus, the Sphere itself was kind of fun to watch, and there's there's kind of like a lot going on there.
So the Sphere section, you're not in the Sphere, you're around the Sphere, is that right?
You're around the Sphere, and so you're watching, you're on the outside of the turn, so the cars are coming in and going all the way around the Sphere in front of you, so you get a little bit more visibility of the race, but it's also not the most exciting turn in the race. There's not like a lot of,
it probably slows down a lot though, so at least the car, you can see the car like a slow corner, and you're getting the most, maybe you see the car for 5 seconds versus a second.
Yeah, right. But I mean, I think ultimately this race is, and especially that circuit, is much better on television. But I think that's true of a lot of circuits. I mean, you look at Monaco and so many other street courses that you're not going to see very much. You're not going to see very much passing. You're not going to see very much of the cars. But Monaco's probably one of the most iconic and popular races and the race that everyone wants to go to. Right?
No, I heard, actually, speaking of Monaco,
they're canceling.
I heard they're canceling it after, or they're not going to continue going there. It was 2026 or 2030, something like that. Like,
really?
Yeah, I read something somewhere that they were taking it off the calendar.
Yeah. So, but I mean, I think there are a lot of racetracks are set up and built where you get more visibility, and a lot of street courses are not. And that's just true of street courses, right?
Yeah, well, you have buildings and stuff that are going to block the view.
Yeah. So I mean, when you consider that, then the real draw is just the, just the excitement. Yeah.
Okay, what about this? Would you go to Vegas again on F1 weekend just to hang out? Like maybe not go to the race, but then just be around, be in it, walk around, just see the show going on.
I would do that, and I would do that with my kid when he's older, like just to do, But Matt and I have already talked about what our next race will be, because this was a bucket list item for me to go to an F1 race.
Yeah, us too.
And I did it, and it was fun. But now it's like, okay, can we do it again? And
yeah, like and a whole different experience, maybe.
Have a whole different experience and in a different city.
Racing.
And so I wouldn't do it again, only because now if I'm gonna put that effort in, I want to see a different race. I'd love to go to Austin. I'd love to go to Montreal. So there are other races that I would want to have a different experience of the whole thing, and a different city and a different crowd and all of that. I think that's kind of one of the fun things about this sport, is that it's so international and it's so diverse.
Well, and it's crazy to see like people travel across the world to go to a race, right? Like maybe obviously Europeans came here to watch the Vegas race because it was obviously super hyped up, and then and like you said, you're at your hotel, all the Checo fans were there.
We're close to Mexico.
Where did they come from? Were they all from here? Did they fly over? Like, where did they come from?
It seemed like a lot of them were from here, but they were Mexican Americans.
Yeah.
And so there was,
I guess that's what's cool about the US too, right? Is we're such a melting pot that you have all these people from all these other countries that can cheer on their national racer still, which is cool.
Yeah, and Las Vegas is a melting pot city, and so within 200 miles of that city, you're going to find a lot of people from a lot of different backgrounds who could attend that. But some of them are staying in the same cheap hotel that I was, doing the same thing.
Perfect.
I mean, I don't blame you. I would have been super same route, balling on a budget. If anything, I probably would have tried to find a friend that was in Vegas. Like, hey man, I'm crashing the couch. Just FYI, like I'm trying to minimize my costs all the way. So.
Yeah. Well, and then when we left the race, the Heineken stand was still open, and at this point they're just like, whatever. And then like,
we don't want to carry this back into the truck, right?
They were giving Matt beer tickets, and we just sat there and drank beer. And we thought we were congratulating ourselves on what a success that night was, and how exciting it was, and all hundreds of thousands of people are pouring out of the tracks, and we're like, we're not in any rush, right? We probably just walk back to the hotel. We're not going to get on the monorail again. And that's when the fireworks show started, and that was even cooler. It's just another big bang to end the night. And it was a ton of fun to be there for that. And even if we hadn't paid for a ticket, I think I would have been bummed if I didn't get to go be on the track, right? It was really cool to be on the track, to go all the way down there and be able to do that. But now that I've done that, I don't think I would do it again.
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel. Like I want to go and get that experience, but I'm sure it's going to be subpar. So I don't need to do it every year, but I want to at least experience once.
Yeah. I mean, I think if you get a chance to do it,
in the brown hoodie, he's the hookup.
Yeah,
you get his name
exactly. I don't think I did. No.
You could probably, you have his Venmo. You find his
Venmo.
You can't put that on YouTube.
We'll block it out. We'll censor it.
They're not gonna let me. They're gonna let me back in, I'm sure.
Yeah. You're now blacklisted.
You go to buy a ticket, and you're like, dee, and you're like, huh? Hit it again,
right.
And like,
and then we saw you on the internet.
Well, I think it's a prime example too of like, if you just pretend like you're supposed to be places and you just walk in like you own the place, like you're supposed to be there, nobody fucking questions. I do that shit all the time. Like,
I don't know. And I've worked in hospitality a long time, and I've worked those parties, right? And I know how that works, right?
Yeah.
And so I wore a collared shirt. I didn't wear a jersey or anything else. I wore a nice sweater and a zip. I wore some of my nicest clothes just because I was going to look like I paid $1,000 or $2,000 or $10,000 to be there. And so that, and that worked. So
Now you got my mind turning on when I go to Texas. I'm like, what should I wear when I go to Texas?
Well, Texas is a different crowd too.
You know, exactly.
You
Yeah,
should
it's
wear
not.
you should wear your Lewis Hamilton shirt.
Yeah.
No,
I almost did. There's a couple of some of his swag. As much as I'm not a
Pretty good,
Lewis
huh?
fan, but there is some swag that he has that is pretty sick.
I don't know. Bottas has a big 10-gallon hat these days, so I think you just rock
Yeah.
that look.
Did you? I heard the calendar.
Did you get his calendar? Yeah.
Did you sell out? his
No,
calendar?
and I saw the video of it.
Oh, I watched
saw
the
a video.
That's pretty
Yeah.
genius, and the fact that he sold out is the guy's definitely not hurting for money, even though he's not finishing where he wants.
No, I think it's cool to see him, like, his personality blossom. You know, now that there's just not so much pressure for him, and to see kind of like, oh, who he really is, right? And he's like, it's like he's his own person, right? He's not as absurd as, let's say, Danny Rick. Like, he's not as out there, but he's like doing his own thing and vibing his own way, and it's cool to see, because as Lewis's fucking teammate, he was really reserved, I thought, and really like
Totally
always under pressure and always looked kind of stretched and or stressed and straight edge. Yeah,
like
he came across as very stoic.
Yeah.
And now he's got this sense of humor, right? And his character, like, he's actually one of the most charming characters in the whole
totally.
scene.
And we're all like, oh my god,
especially to Americans,
like,
right?
Oh, we love your mullet. Yeah,
the mullet, the stash, and the cowboy hat, and the denim shorts or whatever.
Maybe it's because he moved to Australia and they just pulled that. You know,
he moved to Australia?
I think so. Yeah,
I didn't know that.
I think he moved to Australia, and that's like his personality started coming out.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that Texas will be a different way of blending in, but it'll be fun to see how you can do that. My impression of Texas is, from what I've heard, is that it's just a way more chill and accessible race. So
yeah, and it's an actual super track, right? It's very
an actual
wide,
track.
so hopefully you get to see a little bit more.
And the viewing's got to be better. I'm sure.
Yeah. I think you're going to have a more authentic fan, and enthusiast-oriented experience there.
Right.
Yeah.
Whereas Las Vegas is just kind of a scam show.
100%.
Understandable. Yeah.
100%.
But that's just so funny that you guys smuggled your way in. I mean, about stuff like that happening all the time. I've done it myself, or you pass the wristband through the fence, and
but kudos, because that's a big.
Well, when was the last time that's
a big deal to be able to kind of squeeze in?
I haven't done something like that in 20 years or more.
It's like, young kids.
It was like, that's what was so fun about it. It was like, what are we doing? Who are we right now?
Living life on the edge.
Yes.
A couple of middle-aged men sneaking into a
club, what are my kids? You can tell your kids this story someday,
Exactly. Yeah. So anyway, that was definitely like a super fun weekend. And then our cheap ass flight home, which was a Spirit Airlines flight.
Yes.
And I was like, okay, after that whole 36 hours, now I'm on top of all that, my butt is sore from sitting on a metal plane seat for 3 hours.
Yes. Where do you think the other guy in the bottle service guy is?
Exactly.
What plane is he riding home?
Just in case you forgot that this is what the trip that you were on. Here's the final reminder.
Yeah.
Actually, I was curious. I wonder. So it just got me thinking about, okay, the kid's looking around. He was probably trying to sneak somebody else in. He probably put it out there somewhere, right? He's looking for somebody. And then you caught him, right? So it's like, okay, how much was he like slinging these tickets for? What was he doing? You know what I mean?
How many times, right? How many times?
Yeah, it seems like he had a little ring, a little.
Yeah.
Okay, so he's like, I got to make something, right? You said that. So it's like, okay, how many guys were in on this? So he's like, $500. You guys weren't making anything? Like, was there 5 of you guys? Was there 10 of you guys?
I'm sure that was a line. And
for sure.
There was definitely like a whole
because
consortium.
In saying that, he makes it seem like you're going to get legit tickets.
Well, he told me up front that there were no tickets. He was just going to walk us through.
Yeah.
Like that's what we were getting. He was just going to walk us through. And I said, who's going to check on the other side? Because nobody's going to check on the other side. Well, I did take his word for that, but he was right.
Yeah.
Nobody checked on the other side. Nobody cared. Once you're through, like literally, and that was the other thing. This being my intuition was that being the first year and thousands of people and everybody just kind of figuring it out for the first time. Like,
I don't know if
they're
you
not-
do that again next year.
yeah, right. Like
Maybe
next
you
year
might
they're
still be able to because there's going to be so many people there. It's
Mhm.
possible, but they
Right.
maybe have like somebody in the midpoint just floating around, kind of like scanning people. Maybe just one or two.
or they're just going to change the ticket system, right? How people
Yeah.
get through, right? Wristbands or whatever, right? So,
Mhm.
so who knows how it's going to work going forward? But I mean, I don't think that Formula One lost too much money on this, and
Yeah, you don't feel
and I
too
don't-
bad for
and I don't
scamming
hate
the
this kid
system.
for making a little bit of money either, you know?
Right.
No,
no.
I'm not docking the kid for making some little bit of
no.
side muscle or side money, but I almost wonder if you would have waited him out a little bit, if you would have taken the 500. Just curious, like, you know, it's like you kind of always in that battle with somebody. Like,
Oh,
you take
I
500.
think so.
All right,
I think
cool.
he would have. I think he would have, and I think Matt was like just kind of like, we're 600 is fine. In fact, Matt tipped him on top of that afterwards. He slipped him an extra $50, I think, or something. Just because he's like, he was like, all right, you made this happen. You did what you said you were going to.
I mean, at that point too, like if you're expecting to pay $1,000 a ticket and you guys both got in there for 600, I mean, at that point,
Right.
you made out on money. You're like,
Yeah,
you're gambling.
Yeah.
You're just
Yeah,
like, you
you're
got
net
free money.
400.
Yeah.
doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Right?
So
it was-
and you got free drinks. And
we got a bunch
I
of
don't know
free
if you ate
drinks.
or
We
not.
got free food.
Yeah.
Well, we ate there too. The food was good, and it was like whatever. I mean, free is free.
Sit in the
right?
$1 million ticket lounge.
Yeah, and I'll well, I think you've seen some of the footage from that, but I'll send you some more.
Yeah, send it.
You should
I'll
totally
flight
brag
some
that
in.
up. You should totally brag that up to people. Like, yeah, man, we went to Vegas Grand Prix. We were next to the $1 million.
There's one bartender that I know here, and who I had gone into her bar Thursday night to go watch the practice sessions, and that was the night that it was being broadcast on television, and then they cut the feed because they canceled the practice session until 3 a.m. So I'm sitting in there, and she's like, the only other person in the bar was interested in F1, and we were chatting about it. And I said, yeah, I'm going down on Saturday. I don't have tickets. I have no idea how this is going to go down, but I'm just going to go wing it. And she was so excited to hear that story, right? And then like a couple of weeks later, I came back, and she was the one person who was going to be impressed by the whole story, and that was kind of fun to tell her the whole story. Yeah, this is what happened, and we were in the Wynn lounge. It's not a big deal.
I love that. So,
So
we made assumptions when we did our show on the ticket prices, right? So it was kind of like, well, what kind of person buys that?
yeah,
Right. And I'm pretty sure I said something along the lines of like, it's the person that doesn't have a lot of money, but he's got enough to spend on that he wants everybody else to think he has more money than he actually has. And
yeah, I think that when I go to Las Vegas, or when I've seen this person again and again and again and again, right? Like, and there's a lot more of them, it seems like, than I even realize. And they have a lot more money, it seems like, than they should.
Right.
For sure.
And they all spend it the same way, right? They like, I mean, in my mind, it's a guy who lives in Southern California in a huge house and is in charge of some company that we've never heard of that sells widgets for $1 gazillion. And
Pretty spot on.
Yeah. And
For construction.
And also, and he's kind of like an arrogant jerk. He's super charming, but nobody really likes him. And that's why he's alone. Here you go.
He just made a American folktale in 2023.
Exactly. That's America in a nutshell, isn't it? Like,
basically, yeah.
When we get to 2060, this story's going to be retold 500 times.
And he must just be in a lot of debt.
Yeah, maybe.
That's the American dream, dude. The American dream is just finance everything.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. I mean, I used to work for a guy like that too, right? Who used to live like that and owned nothing, but spent money like he owned everything. And, bankruptcy is a beautiful thing. So,
yeah. As long as it's business bankruptcy and not.
Yeah. I mean, so that's that works for him. So I don't know. I don't know who the guy was, and this was not the entire Wynn experience. They had a paddock space, and they had a bunch of other places that you could go experience the race from. This was just one little side lounge that they had. And so I don't know. And in retrospect, if I had had a little bit more gumption, I would have explored a little bit more, because I heard that there was a tunnel that went under the Harmon zone to the paddocks, and I would have pressed my access just a little
If you
bit
could have
more.
got it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
You know?
sometimes maybe it's a little easier to press that access if you have real access to the
Yeah,
actual
right.
event.
I didn't, at the same time, I didn't want to draw too much scrutiny.
Yeah, I don't want to press the luck any further.
Like I'm Toto's cousin. Leave me alone.
Yeah.
He knows I'm coming. He knows I'm here.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, I didn't have much to lose, but
Yeah.
But I was also kind of feeling like we'd already won by getting it, so it was
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's
So,
awesome.
who's your favorite racer or team or?
So my favorite racer this season, anyway, is Charles Leclerc, and my favorite moment from this season was the last 15 seconds of Abu Dhabi. Is that what it was? The last race, where Leclerc makes the strategy call to let Perez by so that he can, put
Try to get
space
second
to try to, and get second
Yeah.
in the championship. I mean, I thought that was a true sportsman move, and just brilliant driving and strategy and calculation on his part. But I thought he raced a hell of a race in Las Vegas, and I thought he raced a hell of a race in Abu Dhabi, and I thought that he deserved that win, or that that position anyway. I thought he was a really great. I think he's a great driver and he's a great fighter, but class act. So yeah.
Speaking of him, I saw he's trying to reach out to get his contract extended to like 2029 or something like that.
I think he already did, didn't he?
Well, then I saw a comment that Fred Monsieur, he's like, yeah, we're in no hurry to like extend their contracts. He's like, but like we'll review it. So he kind of like politely squashed the dream, but he's like, yeah, I don't like him that much, but we'll still talk to him, which I thought was kind of funny because I mean it's smart not in Charles' defense, in the team manager's defense. So he's like, oh, why do I want to lock somebody up for the next 10 years and he's going to shit the bed?
Yeah, we don't
hypothetically, right? Or he could become the next. He could become the next Seb at Ferrari. You never know, but. I just think it's so funny that all these guys are like re-upping their contracts, or they're like trying to dive their contracts like 10 years out. And I get why you do it. You want the security, I guess.
Well,
but
you have a life like Ricciardo's where you're in and out of a team every couple of years.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is his own choice.
It locks you into like, I can't, unless there's like a buyout clause or something like that. Like there's no like free agency in motorsports. That's the weird thing. So it's like, if there's like a free agency and somebody wants to assume the contract, cool. Like, yeah, lock yourself in for 10 years and the last 5, you can jump out or however it works. But you're locking yourself, say you're McLaren, right? Like Lando locked himself into McLaren the next 5 years. And what if their car sucks in the next 3? So it's wait, now you can't go to Red Bull. You can't go to any other team and you're still never going to win a race.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, I think there's precedent for that happening, where teams will go and buy another driver's contract out because they've lost a driver or they need to replace a driver or whatever.
Right.
And they'll go and negotiate and, take a driver even mid-season. So, I mean, that has happened.
Daniel, look at Daniel.
Exactly.
Daniel got like bought out of his contract. It essentially got fired, but that was probably the smartest move Daniel's done because he's set for life, even if he never drives a car again. But he could go race anything he wants. And actually, speaking of Daniel, I guess he's on the table for 2025. I guess it's a free, it's a free drive for 2025. It's between him and Sergio, I believe. So if Daniel like shows up, like,
well, didn't they also say that if Checo doesn't perform up to midway next season, that they're going to throw Daniel in?
Yeah. So,
and that's rough because I think I think he does perform. Like
I do, yeah.
I think he had that bad stint, but.
I mean, but it's so. I mean, I think you saw that with Bottas and Hamilton for so long. Like Bottas's performance in that Mercedes car was remarkable. I mean, the cars were amazing, and let's assume that the cars were equal, right? We know that they've got huge crews, and Mercedes certainly has enough people to devote entire crews to both cars. And so maybe they're not exactly the same. We know that we've seen, competition between crews on the same team trying to beat each other, right? We've seen that before too. And
Hamilton Alonso, Hamilton Rosberg.
Yeah, and what was the one the what was that team that they just did another series on? Ross, who's the F1 director? He had his own team. Ross Braun. The Braun team was like
Oh
that.
yeah, yeah.
Like, you know, so like, those teams, same team, but they were competing against each other. So who knows? But all things considered, I think Bottas like put up incredible numbers for the same time that Lewis Hamilton was. Coming in second every race is not easy to do.
Right.
Right. Well, I think Red Bull is almost trying to replicate that in a way because you saw how dominant they were and how dominant
Yeah.
Mercedes was until Red Bull snatched the last title. Like
Yeah.
they were Mercedes and Bottas. The Lewis Hamilton Bottas Mercedes era was so like dominant. It was insane.
Yeah.
So it's like I think Red Bull definitely are trying to strive for that. We're like, well, we want a guy that's gonna like kick everybody's ass. We want to be 1-2 every race.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the one thing that blows my mind though, and same thing like coming from motocross, like you set up your bike to you, right? Like you're the rider, you're the driver, whatever. It blows my mind that these teams supposedly don't do that. That it's an equal car. I'm like, you're hurting yourself by doing that. Like, why? Like, and it you don't have to change much, but just change the brake settings, change
just a little,
a little bit. Like, it's not
Yeah.
asking for a lot.
They must.
Yeah,
They must have.
I think that-
some, right?
I think I take that information with a grain of salt personally. I
Yeah,
think that there's probably a little bit more differentiation than we're aware of, and that
I mean, you would think
they probably don't tell the drivers that either, right?
they want them to think they want them to think they're on the same equipment so that
Yeah.
he's getting preferable treatment or whatever.
Exactly, but the numbers don't lie. I mean, Verstappen is a absolute machine, and he had the most podiums, followed by Perez. So
Yeah.
Like Perez showed up this season and definitely got them. So what I thought was funny was that Alonso was the third with the most podiums. Did you see that statistic?
I think I did see that somewhere.
Oh, the beginning of the season, he had all those in a row.
Yeah. And so he ended the season, I think, with 8 podiums, which was the third most podiums of the whole lineup this year.
Yeah.
So,
I think Hamilton,
he's my age.
Hamilton only had one DNF or something, or
I don't know.
I think he finished in the points like every race almost.
I thought I saw said that this was the season that he missed. He must have DNF because this is like his one of his only seasons he didn't score points or something like that. It was like one of those oddball stats that like Lewis normally gets points in every season or something. Or
yeah,
it was like something weird. I don't remember what it was, but it was something.
He did get points. This is the second season that he hasn't won a race.
Maybe it was that one. I don't know.
And that's what's so fun about this particular sport is that so Alonso can get 8 podiums, but Hamilton can still beat him in the points because he's more consistent in his performance every race.
Yeah.
And so at the end of the season, that's what counts. And he doesn't have to be on the podium as much, And Leclerc was what, 4th in the driver's standings, and
that's what I was super confused.
I don't know because there was 4 of them going for 4th, and it all
got shifted in like the last round
because Sainz almost had it locked in, and then Alonso I think ended up taking it, and then Leclerc.
Oh yeah. In the end, actually, Alonso was 4th in drivers' points, and Leclerc was 5th.
Yeah.
And then there's 2 of them that were only separated by like 1 point, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I think it's a really fun. This was fun. Like it's fun that of course Verstappen ran away with everything, but the rest of the crowd, like there's a lot of good competition.
Yeah, if you take Max out of this, and you look at the rest of the field, and even Checo, everything is really tight.
Yeah,
all the races are close. All the points are close. Everything. It would be a hell of a season, barring that being out, like Max being out in his car and everything out.
Yeah,
everything
and
else was like.
I think that's what made Vegas kind of fun, even though there was so much hype coming up before the race about how about what a spectacle it would be, and then there was all this hype about what a failure it was going to be because of all of the conditions and the prices being too high and it being so late in the season and the championship already being decided. But the reality was, to your point, that it was such a tight grouping there in points that race was just as sort of influential as any of the others in terms of how, for example, the constructors championship ended up and the drivers points ended up. So,
Yeah.
who was going to get second, third, fourth, fifth, like that was all still in play. And that's what everybody was still watching.
Well, I think if you're a real race fan, there's still a lot of excitement in the midfield to be watching and all that stuff. And there's a lot of money to be had for those teams, even finishing place more, fifth instead of sixth is a lot of $1 million, right?
Yeah.
Third
Second instead of third is a lot, which is
huge. Yeah.
For the constructors, right?
Especially signs going right in and then having the manhole cover.
Right.
And that threw him into basically what? He was the last place, like starting last. Because he has to take the engine penalty, the transmission penalty. So
and did he spin out in the first turn?
What's that?
Did he spin out in the first turn? Or was
No. I mean, he started last because
he started last,
penalty. And so, that affected his ability to finish fourth in the overall championship, which is a huge too, because then I think Leclerc overtook him by 1 place. Yeah. And, it's just so there's a lot going on.
Yeah.
That if you're just there to see the spectacle of it, you don't really care, I guess, or you don't understand. So
I don't think
we were talking about how we think Vegas, if they want it to be such a Super Bowl of Formula One, it should be the last race, because then at least it's like the celebration of the season being over instead of like this huge thing. And then, all right, well, we have the next, the final race in Abu Dhabi next week.
I think that there's a really good argument to be made for that. I think that's a great idea. I think they're also, they're already discussing changing the lineup of the races so that the travel isn't so grueling for the teams going from continent to continent.
I already have a comment on that. They want to care about sustainability and whatnot. Is their big old driver? It's just a push button because it's convenient right now, right? So you care about sustainability, but you'll go from Vegas to the Middle East, back to Brazil, back to Vegas, back to Canada. Like, why wouldn't you just do, hey, let's do the west side on one day, let's do the east side on the other half of the year. You know what I mean? Like,
or even if it's like start in Europe and then move to the Americas and then go back to Europe,
and then stay there the rest of the year and like through the Middle East and all that. But I don't know. It's I definitely don't agree with a lot of stuff that happens for sure. Yeah.
But F1's this F1 owns this building. They own, this is the only, to my knowledge, the only track they own, right?
Yep. This is the only track that they've actually sponsored, that they built, that they put on.
Right. They put a lot of money into that infrastructure, and I think they're going to put a museum there for the rest of the year. They're going to have all kinds of stuff. I think this is the beginning of a new era for them.
Yeah, I think so.
And with Zhu Guanyu, is that his name?
Guanyu.
Guanyu, yeah. I mean, like, and China coming up now, they're going to put a new circuit or a new race there, I think, and Hamilton's arguing for Africa. I mean, Formula One is really launching into a new era of high-profile international racing, and Netflix is a big part of that equation as well.
I think so, for sure.
I think we're going to see a lot of changes and a lot of evolution, and I think whatever they're doing, even with the missteps, is pretty brilliant marketing. Yeah. I mean, the very reason that your podcast exists,
right?
Like it's as a result of that sudden.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, and I told Tristan this when we first started, was, look, this is going to be a pioneering channel because it's new in America. It's not fucking new. It's been around since the 60s, right? 50s even.
Right.
But it's gotten hyped now, and now's the opportunity for us to get in as an American channel, because all of this is starting to really take a new level. And now with everybody watching the internet all the time, that's a next step to be influential and to have a view in the space.
I mean, there's a handful of American channels out there, but it's not nearly like what you see in Europe. It's like everybody and their mom knows about F1. Here, like, not everybody knows about F1. Definitely, I'll run into people. I was in FedEx the other day, and I talked to some lady, and because she had a Red Bull jersey on, I'm like, hey, where'd you get that? And she's like, oh, I got it at the race. I'm like, wait, what? Like, this like older Hispanic lady. I was like, what do you mean you went to an F1 race?
Yeah.
Like, who are you? We need to talk.
Come on the show.
Yeah. So it's super funny. And she's like, oh yeah, no, we went to the Miami one. I was like, really? So
so that was in Arizona. You met?
Yeah, that was like
Yeah.
15 minutes from my house. I was dropping off samples for work to mail it to a customer, and
Oh yeah.
lady walks in, and I was like,
You're
look,
gonna
I just
interview
kept
her
like
on her
double taking her
experience?
jersey, and I was like, what the heck? So
It'd be fun to hear her experience of that. That'd be cool.
yeah, I told her, I was like, hey, we'd love to have you, but and she's like, my daughter has social media, I don't. I'm like, okay, like whatever, tell your daughter to follow the show.
But I
So
think you hit on something there, right? She was an older Hispanic lady. And again,
Yeah.
like, Central America and Mexico, they have a more European sense of sport, just, with
sure.
football and other things. And so, again, that's what you're tapping into here are American Americans,
right,
maybe,
yeah.
who are just used to football and baseball and don't and NASCAR and don't really follow
Praise
this
go,
very
come on
much.
now.
Yeah. One of the things I saw, to your point about motocross and all that, I took my son to Formula Drift a couple of
Nice.
years.
Yeah.
And I'd never been to Formula Drift before. A couple of friends of mine, younger guys I know who are car guys, are like, oh, it's so much fun, you got to go. And my son plays video games. I don't play video games very much, but he plays, Forza and all this stuff.
Mhm.
So we go to Formula Drift, and it was so fun. It was so exciting and so fun. And I don't know if you've ever seen it or done it or studied it, but like there's a whole unique setup to how races happen, right? There's different, the way they do it all. It's very unique. And then there's intermission. And so we go down to the track, and it's kind of like, backyard racing. We're just down there on the track, and right there are some of these big names. And I'm seeing them come up on the leaderboard. I'm like, Ryan Turk is racing here today, and Von Giffen Jr. is racing here today. Like, really? These are like big stars. And my son's like, I know these guys. They're from my video games. And I'm like, this is wild. And then we're down on the track and in between races, and they're there just signing T-shirts.
Talking normal, good old boys, like
just talk. Yeah, totally. You just walk up to them and like, hey, and one of them had Von Giffen Jr. had a conversation with my son, who at the time was like 8 or 9 or 10 maybe, and it blew his mind. Right? He's just like, wow. So it's such a different experience, right, than Formula One. But
Yeah.
you have access to legitimately big stars who are world-class drivers.
Yeah.
And I think there are these little cottage industries of motorsports in this country, and I think you have such great access to those. I don't think any of us will ever get that kind of access to F1, but
right.
Yeah.
Well,
we hope we could one day.
That's kind of like how back in the day, like what my parents talk about, like how motocross and supercross started, like guys were out of the back of their trucks or their box vans, and like it wasn't what it is now. Like they have the semis and stuff, which still you could still walk up to a guy at the track, like a professional, like Jet Lawrence or whoever, whether he's at the practice track or he's at supercross. If you catch him, like he'll totally like have a word with you, like, hey, what's going on? How's your day? Blah blah blah. Versus like Formula One, when are we ever going to walk by Lewis Hamilton, right? Or like when are these guys are A-list celebrities
exactly.
Versus like the motocross guys, just like, or the Formula Drift guys, just like, hey, you could run into him at the grocery store. He lives in, West Covina or whatever, and he just happens to drive for somebody. He's got a popular car, like,
yeah. I guess what I'm saying is that there's plenty of people out there, who have. I guess there's not a lot of people. I guess it's a small contingent of people who are hardcore enthusiasts who know these guys and are excited to go to these races. And Formula One is doing something different, and they're trying to reach a much broader audience with a much, much bigger, broader marketing campaign.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I do want to go to the Long Beach Grand Prix because I was told that at Long Beach they do Formula Drift there too, like in between like the racing and stuff. And then they also do Robbie Gordon's in more of the off-road scene. He does the stadium.
And that's such a cool race. The stadium super trucks is wild.
And I'm like, dude, like I could get a little bit of everything. I got my off-road stuff. I got baby Formula One in IndyCar, and then I got even drifting. Like, because I mean, if you've ever drifted a car when you're a kid, right? And I drift something once a week at least, but like regardless how old you are, like you drifted, that's like a sick feeling. So when you see somebody do it, they're like, oh my God, that is sick. Like, and you're super stoked on it. So, it feels like the one thing that's sad about Formula One, I guess, is like, it seems so unachievable for like the generic, like Lewis always pumps the, oh man, I came from a poor family, blah, 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 blah. It was definitely a different era then. Because like, look at it now. Formula One has so much money. It's like, okay, yeah, I could pop out a kid tomorrow, start karting, and do everything right, but it's like Formula One is not here. So it's like
Yeah.
how like
and there's so many
Made it,
there's
but-
so many talented people. I mean, that's one of the things Matt and I talked about, you know, and we've talked about this with Lewis Hamilton a lot. That the Venn diagram of like access and talent,
yes.
you know, to get into that place, to be one of the 20 people in the world who
Yeah.
race for $20 million a year is so narrow, right? Unlike any other sport.
Yeah.
And these days, like you said, even if you wanted to do it, there are so many of those people who can fall in that narrow category and have enough money to back it up, right? So,
Right. Well, I mean, look at Stroll. So like Stroll or
right.
even Latifi, it's like
Stroll's a perfect example, right?
you guys had a bunch of money and you were able to get it.
Legitimately talented driver, you know, who probably wouldn't have a spot if it weren't for the other thing.
Yeah.
So,
Well, because arguably they're not as talented as some of the other drivers. They just have more money. But that's a big
Yeah.
part of the
You got to pay
The
to
race.
you got to pay to play him.
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I think if you look at Stroll's performance, like he's not the worst driver.
No, for sure.
No, and I will say we talked about this too. Is I think he's really matured as a driver through the years. You know, I
Yeah.
don't think that he would have had that opportunity if he, you know, he didn't do great his first few seasons.
Right.
You know, and I don't
But-
think he would have a drive if his dad didn't buy a team. But I will say to that, he's put in a lot of work and a lot of effort, and I think he's a phenomenal driver now.
Sure. And if you think about like the amount of pressure to be in that seat and the height of technology that he's piloting, he's holding his own with an elite group of 20 guys.
Yeah.
But he's able to do that, you know, because of that access, right? Like that's really what got him in front of those people. So
I kind of like what you said about an elite group because like I think we don't really realize how elite like the whole field is because we see Max right now, right? And Max is so far ahead. It like almost distracts us with like, hey, like
How good everybody else is.
how good everybody is. And
Yeah.
it's kind of like when you watch the era of like you go like, okay, you watch Michael Jordan and he was like in a league of his own, right? Or that Chicago Bulls teams they were in a league of their own. And then you know, you watch the Man U and Beckham era, and it's like they were in a league of their own, dominating everything. And like you watch it, how good that individual is, you forget like, dude, there's a lot of bad dudes. Like
there are a lot of talent. Yeah, I think with all of those people, there are a lot like basketball and football. There's a lot of talented people who kind of get eclipsed by the one or two or three superstars.
yeah.
But in Formula One, there's only 20 people. and if you look at the last 5 years, I mean, I can't remember them or count them, but there's probably half a dozen who were there and now they're not.
Right.
They didn't.
Right.
They
Half
didn't
of them are
cut it.
commentators, half of them are in the mountains just hanging out on their own. Like,
They're in Formula
Or
2 now.
Indy.
yeah.
They're reserve drivers in Formula 2 or Formula 3 or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And they'd love a shot at this,
Yeah.
right? But it's hard.
So yeah, maybe I'm hard on them, but at the same time, I think like because I'm sure I don't know if you watched any of your other videos, I definitely throw some hot takes out there. But on the same token, like when you're at that level too, I know like those guys definitely want more. Like I feel like a guy like K-Mag or Nico, they're both like, hey dude, I'm cool being in a seat, like whatever. Like they know they're not gonna go win a title. But then I'm sure there's a couple of guys like Pierre probably thinks he has a shot at winning. Does Pierre really have a shot at winning? Probably not. Does Ocon? I can't stand Ocon at this point. But do you think he really believes he can win? I think that dude thinks he's going to show up on a weekend and win.
Yeah, and
You kind of have to think you're going to win.
Yeah.
At that level, no
Like-
matter if you're 20th on the grid or you're winning every weekend.
Which, as much as I can't stand George Russell, I mean, he got a second in Spa, and Zach will never let me live that down. But he got a second in Spa, and it was like how the
Williams,
dice,
right?
in the Williams,
Williams.
how the dice fell that weekend, and he was in the right place at the right time. So I mean, I'm not ruling everybody out, but a lot of stuff has to go right for one of those lower end teams to get a win.
I think that's one of the things that Formula One does so well is that it makes you forget. You get all rooted and you get disappointed in people's performance and you get all emotional about the highs and lows, and it totally makes you forget that this is a really, really hard job and that
Right.
we couldn't do it. There's no way.
I think sometimes it's hard for us to really wrap our heads around that, right? Because it's easy for us to sit here, and have a conversation about how awful people are and how we'd be so fucking much better. But you get in that, and even just the fear factor of like, when's the last time you went in your jalopy at fucking almost 300 miles an hour, or like, I know Rishi, you ride sport bikes, like that, that even is not as fast accelerating as a Formula One car, and that's crazy to think about.
Yeah,
That these
and that's not even accounting for the pressure. I mean, all of the physical impact of that.
Yeah,
and,
the G forces
and staring your own mortality in the face.
Yeah.
Not regarding the pressure of like the marketing and the money and the media and all of that.
Yeah.
I think I get personally like into like, oh yeah, dude, I grew up racing, but then I think about, okay, like whether it's playing the video game, right? It's like, oh, I can leave it on all the way through this corner. And sometimes I'll be checking up, like my brother-in-law, he smashes that Formula One, the video game. And he's like pulling me in corners, or he's diving in on me in corners. I'm like, how did you leave it on that much longer? Or like, where are you finding the time? Or we could go to the go-kart track, and like, I'm like, I feel confident there, right? But then I think of the days when I was racing dirt bikes. I'm like, oh, I just need to leave it on a little bit more into this corner. I need to hit this corner faster. Even though it's flat, I'm not in the air, I'm not doing anything, but it's like, I got to do that like 10x.
Yeah, right.
And I gotta hope that the rubber's keeping me in that slot. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I've done a lot of different forms of racing, whether it's BMX, dirt bikes, RC cars, go karts. I have a side by side, and just thinking of like, okay, you're getting paid to do this, right? And like, you got to have the confidence in your car or vehicle or bike, whatever, to leave it on that much more, push it to the edge that much more.
And so you guys. You have people like Toto Wolff and Christian Horner who are in charge of these teams. They're going to put the very best drivers that they can find on the face of the planet in those cars.
Especially when you're paying that money.
And they know all of these guys. They know all the guys in Formula 2. They know all the guys in Formula 3. They've been watching them since they were 12 years old. They know who they are, right? And it's I crack up the same way when I watch people sit on the couch and yell at a screen about a football player doing something. I'm like, yeah, you you didn't spend your whole life to get to this point. That guy did,
Yeah.
So
it's like the ongoing joke, right? It's like, oh, you got a PK and the guy shanks a PK, or he's in front of the goalie by himself and he puts it left, and you're like, man, you get paid millions of dollars a year to miss that.
You have one job. This
was your bonus that you trained the last 30 years for, and you blew it.
Right. And it sucks when you blow it, right? And imagine how he feels. But so you got to say, even like, I'm with you. Like, I think there are some overrated drivers, but overrated compared to fair and narrow field, so
overrated compared to the top best in the world, not overrated compared to our old asses getting in there,
I should guarantee we show up to a kart track and the reserve driver for the F2 team is going to work our asses. We can not even know who this kid is, and he's
the guy who changes tires is going to lap us.
Well, I don't know about that. No.
Max's engineer.
Anyway.
Yeah, man. Awesome, Rishi. Well, dude, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story. Thrilling. You told me it was going to be kind of a loop, and it was awesome. We appreciate you coming on and sharing. We do have one little part of the episode that
I thought you were going to forget about this.
That we end on.
Oh,
even Bodie's stoked about it. So we always ask any guest who's on to marry, fuck, kill. So we usually will pick 3 drivers. You have to determine who you're going to marry, who you're going to fuck, and who you're going to kill. You down?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Because he doesn't have a choice.
Because you don't have a choice. Or should we just let them pick out of all of the drivers who
we could? I'm fine with doing that.
Yeah.
You have a whole 20-man field.
Out of all the drivers.
Yeah, I already know the answers. Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, all right, perfect. Tell us.
Okay. Oh man, it's a tough one.
I already know.
I'd marry Hamilton. Fuck Sainz,
of course, right?
Yeah, and his worldview. He's a wise guy.
Yeah,
he's a wise man, is what I mean.
Yes.
Fuck Sainz, who's a pretty boy, and and kill Yuki Tsunoda.
I had a feeling
Can't
you
stand
was
that
coming.
guy.
I was like, everybody like,
Yes.
oh god, that's funny.
Awesome.
All right.
was good.
Well, that was a lot of fun. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, Richie, thanks, brother. Appreciate
sir.
you, man.
Hopefully, we'll see you at a race. I'll be at Texas, so if you decide to buy tickets last minute, let me know.
Okay, I'll let you know.
What's your t-shirt size? Do you have t-shirts?
I gotta double check. Yeah, what size do you have? Or
Large.
large? I'll see if that one might be close. I gotta double check.
Whatever.
What size is your kid?
Medium will work for him.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, he would love one of those. That would be great.
Awesome.
If I don't have a large, your kid's gonna get one for you. So
That's great.
yeah. Oh, actually, out of curiosity, how much was that sweatshirt since you got it from Vegas?
Yeah, I didn't buy it in Vegas, actually. I bought it when I got home. I bought one in Vegas and I found it. I actually, the last day, the afternoon, we were on our way to the airport. I was like running through the gift shops and they were all sold out. And I found one. And it was discounted 10%. It was the last one. And it was 70 or 80 bucks. I think.
It's not bad. Is it good quality?
And then
like good material?
Yeah, they're really good quality. And then I got home and I was like, why did I do that? Like that wasn't even the right size. It was too big for me. And I ordered this one online and it was $60 or something. So
and the same exact one, pretty much.
They had a few different styles, and this is the one I wanted. It has like a little different color on the back, and it was the right size. So I wore this. This is my first day wearing it. I wore it for this. It was my Christmas gift to myself, and
we appreciate it.
I like it because it says 23 on it, or 2023. So, it's not just it's commemorative of this experience.
The inaugural race.
Be careful when you wash their stuff because I've gotten a couple different shirts, not F1 branded shirts, but like any of the team stuff. If you wash it once, shit shrinks so fast.
Yeah,
I don't even put it in the dry.
I know that about the team stuff. This is not team stuff. This is just F1 stuff.
I'm giving away like 3 shirts because I had like 3 different McLaren shirts and like one other shirt, and I had to give them away because like I washed it in the washer like once, and I like put it on, and I was like, this looks kind of medium-ish. I'm not really digging this.
Well, what's nice is I have a kid who just wears everything I shrink, so it doesn't
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Works for now.
Awesome.
All right, guys.
Yeah, thank you, Richie. Appreciate you, brother.
Thank you so much. Have a good night.
Later, buddy. Bye. And like, share, subscribe. That's our show for today.
Thanks for watching. Thank you so much for the support, all the stuff. And we'll keep stuff pumping out in this off season. Hopefully keep you entertained until
support Blood Lubricants.
Oh yeah, Blood Lubricants,
our main sponsor of the channel.
I just met with him today. Great guy, Jeff. Good stuff, good quality stuff. I just put their oil in my truck, so we'll see how that runs. But he says I'll get 25,000 miles on. Well,
25,000 miles
on that oil change.
No way.
That's what he said.
You're supposed to change it every 10, maybe.
That's how good.
25,000. So I can change my oil because I have some downstairs. 25,000 miles.
And the diesel, I don't know what he's recommending in yours,
right,
but I'll text him and double check. But 20 to 25, we'll put a range on it.
Damn, that's awesome.
All right,
more sold.
Yeah, a little bit
it's
more.
It's worth
the money. You're
saving money. Yeah, you're saving a lot of money. Okay. Awesome, guys. Thank you again.
Cheers.
Later.